Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open some of the absolute most baffling case files in human history. As a historian, I'm usually trained to view human progress as this straightforward upward line, right? We go from primitive stone tools all the way up to modern artificial intelligence. But what happens when we stumble across physical, tangible objects from the distant past that just completely shatter that timeline? Today, we're reviewing several ancient and historical mysteries. We're going to look purely at the physical evidence, and we're going to ask some incredibly tough questions. Let's get right into it.
So what if everything we know about ancient technology is just wrong? It's a pretty provocative thought, isn't it? As modern humans, we tend to carry around this illusion of superiority. We kind of just assume that because we've got smartphones in our pockets and space stations orbiting the Earth, our ancestors must have been technologically simplistic. But as you'll see in the physical evidence we're going through today, there are artifacts and structures out there that suggest ancient humanity actually possessed a highly advanced understanding of math, engineering, and astronomy that we've somehow completely lost along the way. So are these just historical errors, or is there a truth out there we just aren't quite ready to accept?
Here's our syllabus for today's Explainer. We're going to cover four main areas. First, engineering that defies logic. Second, unbreakable codes and designs. Third, when modern science fails. And fourth, rewriting the human timeline. All right, Section 1, engineering that defies logic. We're going to dive right in and examine mechanical and architectural capabilities that, honestly, simply shouldn't have existed in their respective eras. 37. Now, that's not just a random number. This is a mind-boggling statistic representing the exact number of precision-cut metal gears discovered inside a heavily rusted lump of metal pulled straight from the bottom of the ocean. This object, which was retrieved by Greek divers in a 1901 shipwreck, is known as the Antikythera mechanism. Now, what's truly fascinating here is the timeline and the sheer capability of this thing. This device was built roughly 2,000 years ago, deep in the BC era. Using modern X-ray imaging and 3D scans, scientists confirmed those 37 interlocking metal gears functioned as an incredibly complex analog computer. It actually worked kind of like a modern clock to calculate the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets, predict eclipses, and even track the dates of the Olympic Games. To create metal gears with this level of advanced design requires extremely precise tools that we firmly believed absolutely did not exist 2,000 years ago. So the really crucial point here is, how did this even exist? And why did this profound technological knowledge just suddenly vanish? Let's move over to Egypt and see how this builds a timeline of mystery. The Great Pyramid of Khufu at Giza was constructed around 4,500 years ago, with a level of structural accuracy that to this day routinely baffles our modern engineers. Fast forward to the year 2017. A massive scientific project called the Scan Pyramids mission deployed what's called muon radiography. Basically, this is cosmic ray imaging, used to detect hidden spaces inside solid walls without actually disturbing the structure. Just look at the massive gap on this timeline for a second. It literally took us 4,500 years to develop the physics required just to look inside what they built. And what exactly did those modern cosmic rays find? Well, they confirmed a massive hidden void, roughly the size of a commercial airplane, sitting completely inaccessible inside the pyramid. And here's the kicker. Despite our absolute cutting-edge science identifying this massive void, along with these incredibly narrow shafts perfectly aligned with specific star systems, we still cannot decipher its true purpose. Was it a construction corridor, maybe a hidden royal tomb, or some kind of ancient vault? Our best modern physics can only look. It absolutely cannot explain the deep astronomical and architectural knowledge of the Egyptians. Moving on to Section 2, Unbreakable Codes and Designs. Because you see, ancient humans didn't just build physically massive structures. They also left behind highly complex, coded communications. But the big question is, who exactly was the intended audience? Take a look at this. Discovered in 1912 in an Italian monastery, the Voynich manuscript is a 240-plus page book carbon-dated back to the 1400s. And the anomalies here are just staggering. Linguistically, it's written in an unknown alphabet that remains completely unbroken by modern AI and cryptography. It doesn't match any known human civilization. Botanically, it features illustrations of bizarre plants that simply do not exist in reality. Technologically, there are these really strange sketches of naked women bathing in tubes and pipes of green liquid, which kind of resemble sketches of unknown technology. And astrologically, it features star maps and galaxies completely unknown to medieval Europe. It's a physical artifact that completely and utterly stumps modern science. Similarly, let's look at the timeline of the Nazca lines in Peru. Created somewhere between 200 BCE and 600 CE, these were formed by scraping away the reddish-brown topsoil of the desert to expose the gray-white earth underneath. Now, if you're standing on the ground, they just look like random dug-up paths. Honestly, it wasn't until the 1930s, when modern airplanes first flew over the desert, that their true scale was finally revealed. Think about that. They remained completely hidden from the human perspective for centuries. We are talking about macro-engineering the desert here. There are over 300 geometric shapes and giant figures, including a massive monkey, a spider, and this huge hummingbird. The precision is astonishing for sure. But the real mystery is the perspective. It strictly requires an aerial view to even comprehend the design. So I have to ask you, if humans couldn't fly in 200 BCE, who exactly was the intended audience for these massive desert canvases? Scholars have proposed a ton of theories, ranging from an astronomical calendar aligned with stars to ceremonial pathways for water prayers, underground water maps, or, yes, even land markers for an advanced aerial presence. Regardless of the theory, the sheer perfection of these lines without an aerial vantage point remains an incredible feat. That brings us to Section 3, when modern science fails. Let's shift our analysis and look at the moments where our modern tools and modern physics completely fail to replicate or even explain historical phenomena. 80 tons. That is the staggering mass of some of the massive Moai statues over on Easter Island. There are hundreds of these statues, ranging anywhere from 13 to 30 feet tall. And they were carved by ancient islanders using absolutely nothing but primitive stone tools. No machines, no iron. Just consider this comparison for a second. Ancient islanders didn't just carve these 80-ton giants. They moved them miles away from the mountain quarries. And researchers recently discovered that they aren't just heads. There are massive, full torsos buried deep underground. On the flip side, local legends actually claim the statues walked to their locations. Now, while modern researchers try to explain this away using complex systems of ropes and wooden logs, practical experiments have repeatedly shown that modern engineers severely struggle to replicate this movement today. So, if we can barely move them using our advanced understanding of physics, how on earth did an ancient civilization do it so flawlessly? Now let's consider the Shroud of Turin. This is a fascinating artifact where science and history just violently collide. It bears the faint image of a bearded man with crucifixion wounds that exactly match biblical texts, nail holes in the hands and feet, scourging marks on the back. Now, in 1988, scientists carbon dated it to about 700 years old, which suggested it was a medieval forgery. But this is highly disputed today because the sample may have been heavily contaminated by pollution and medieval repairs. But the real issue for modern physics, it's the anomaly of the image itself. Experts state the image is actually like a 3D negative, seemingly created by a rapid flash of light radiation that simply cannot be replicated by natural, earthly physics. We literally cannot recreate this print today. And we see similar scientific roadblocks out in the ocean too. Take the Bermuda Triangle. Sure, there are natural theories attached to it, like methane gas hydrates erupting from the ocean floor to alter water density and sink ships, or extreme magnetic fields interfering with compasses. But we really have to weigh those natural theories against the completely unexplained anomalies. In 1945, 5 American Navy bombers, known as Flight 19, vanished completely, along with the rescue planes sent right after them. The massive USS Cyclops vanished with over 300 people aboard without sending a single SOS signal. Not a single trace of wreckage, no bodies, nothing. Modern science points to natural causes, yet it completely fails to explain how massive naval ships and military planes just evaporate into thin air without leaving a single clue behind. Which leads us to our final segment, Section 4, Rewriting the Human Timeline. We really need to evaluate how all this tangible, physical evidence challenges everything we are traditionally taught about human progress. When we summarize all this evidence together, it reveals a massive technological gap. Think about what we've covered. We have analog computers utilizing precision metal gears existing centuries before the Common Era. We've got a 600-year-old manuscript with cryptographic codes and botanical illustrations that completely defeat 21st century artificial intelligence. We see megalithic transport on Easter Island and in the Giza pyramids that completely defies our modern engineering and physics capabilities. And we have chemical, radiological, and geographical phenomena that we simply cannot naturally replicate or fully explain today. The evidence strongly indicates that our ancestors possessed a highly advanced, organized understanding of the world, one that we have somehow lost along the way.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. As we wrap up, I want you to really ponder this question. Are all of these things just glitches in history, just random anomalies in our linear timeline? Or are we looking at the surviving traces of a completely lost chapter of humanity? The physical evidence is out there, sitting right now in museums, buried deep in the oceans, and carved into deserts, just waiting for us to catch up. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this sparked your curiosity to look past the textbooks and investigate the mysteries of our past for yourself. Keep questioning everything, and I'll see you next time.